Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm joined by my good friend Kristina, who is going to give us a little bit of an insight into the world of property, and more specifically, how that can relate to you as musicians and people, I guess, in the creative industries as a whole, not just necessarily those that are performers. So, Kristina, hi, thank you for joining us.
Oh, hiya.
It's good to see you. Me and Kristina met a few years back at some property event, and we've done a few deals together since then, which have been absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there's many more to come in the years ahead. But Kristina, I've invited you to kind of come and take part in this and to give us an insight, because you've trodden the path that I know a lot of career musicians, working musicians would like to tread, in that you were involved in the industry, which we'll talk about in a moment. And continue to kind of do that whilst at the same time beginning to, I guess, plan for the future by creating the property empire that you've got now. So tell us a little bit about your background as a creative and as a musician first, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so at 16 I went to a musical theatre college called Phil Winston's, which is like a private dance college. I trained there for 3 years, and then just over 18 I think I was, or maybe just under 9, yeah, I was just turning 19, and I got my first job on a cruise ship, and I just went off and started working as a singer dancer, and that was really the start of my career. And yeah, as a musician, you know, it's just in you, isn't it, to perform, and it was just the dream, really. So I spent a good, I think probably from 19 to about 25 basically living out of a suitcase, just living in London, going back on a cruise ship, then going and doing panto, then back at home for a few months, and then just that lifestyle of here, there and everywhere, you know, get a phone call, get a job, and I'm off the next week, and sod the rest of the world, I'm gone. And that's me for 9 months, and then I'm back, you know, just that whole, you know, living and breathing.
It's a working musician, isn't it? And that's what I know a lot of the people that we deal with that indeed are watching this. I'm looking at the chat now, and there's people from literally all over the country and abroad that are kind of saying hello when they log in. And actually, they're very much in the similar boat to where you, excuse the pun there, similar boat, the cruise ship, similar boat to where you're at. Do you miss it, first of all? Do you miss because I know you do very little of that now. I
don't do any now, because do you know what I think? For me, I think about this quite a lot, and I think, why don't I miss it? I should miss it, and I really don't. But it's because whatever I do, I get quite obsessed with, and I just live in the moment of thinking about that thing, and then I just forget about everything that it's only when I talk about it I'm like, oh yeah, I did used to sing, yeah, why don't I miss that? But then at the same time, I'm like dancing around I'm 33 weeks pregnant, and I'm still dancing around my kitchen and singing and stuff. So I guess I just get my kicks in a different way now. I feel like I need to still have an outlet, and I still need to perform in some way or be creative. As long as I'm doing that in some aspect of my life, then I think the box is ticked. But I don't miss going out at night. Oh, it's the lifestyle that killed it for me. Like, come 6 o'clock, I am in my pajamas. I couldn't pay to leave the house. Like, I'm not interested. I don't want to leave the house.
Used all your rock and roll quota up in the early years then.
I've just hit it too hard. Too much drinking, too much partying, and now I'm 33. I've got a 2-year-old and I'm pregnant. I'm not interested in going out.
I guess that kind of brings us onto the issue, I guess, of family, because the reality is, and that there is a very, very small percentage of people, working musicians, that can manage that compatibility between kind of family life and settling down and having a normal-ish life and being a working musician. The two are not necessarily compatible. It's not impossible, but it is difficult without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm guessing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but actually that was perhaps one of the catalysts for you thinking, okay, one day I'm going to want to do the whole family thing in the most traditional sense. I know that I can't do this forever, because there is a lifespan. I think for many working musicians, not all, but for many, and I think often that is one of the things that triggers it, thinking, actually, if I want to do the family thing, I need to have something else in place. Is that fair to say that was
massively? Yeah.
Okay. So at what point did you think, okay, this is amazing, I'm loving it, but there has to be something else, not a plan B, because I don't think that's the right term, but
Mm.
something that's a continuation of what I'm doing that gives me options on the table. When did that kind of occur?
Do you know what? I think for me, it started quite early on, just by being a desperate, struggling musician. I think my lowest point was when I was living in London, because just to earn, I was gigging in these like horrible, rough pubs in London. I was in an original band, which, as you know, a lot of the time, when you're in an original band, you don't earn any money. You have to pay the venue.
Yeah, fine.
And so I was like, when I wasn't in the original band, I was gigging around pubs doing my own stuff, and then everything else, to earn money, I was working as a shop girl,
Yeah,
and I literally got treated like a stripper.
yeah,
But I wasn't. I was a shop, and you know, I'd be fuming inside, because I'd be like, I am a professional singer, Dan. Oh, you don't know how talented I am. But there I am, selling shorts in you know, central London, just to make 50 quid or whatever. And I think it was at that stage that I just got this real hunger for security and fire. And every time I would come home feeling upset or feeling disrespected, it would really just make me think, I absolutely cannot keep doing this.
yeah.
And so I just had like, I think I just got a desire to be rich, really, because I was like, I shouldn't ever have to do this.
Yeah. And what was there's always that moment where you think, this is what I'm going to do. When did that start? How did you kind of turn that desire to generate wealth and security? How did you begin the process of making that a reality?
Okay, so it wasn't a straight into property type of thing. So I was living in London, and then so I was selling the shots. I was started teaching Zumba. I was doing anything and everything to make money, and still just struggling all the time. And then I got approached by a friend who was doing extremely well in a network marketing business. And that was the first time really I'd ever thought of passive income or business really at all. And she was like recommending books for me to read, and personal development seminars, and just things to go to really, where you would hear information that I'd never heard before about like positive thinking, and just, you know, just really good business insight really that I'd never had before. So it was really a trickle of that going in my mind for a good few years, that I got into a habit of just going to different business
Yeah,
presentations. And that's how I got into thinking about property. I went to a Rich Dad Poor Dad
yeah,
seminar after reading the book. It was free. I just went along not knowing it was going to be about property, and it was all about property. And then they were talking about, basically, no matter what your background is, no matter what your savings are, you know, anyone can do it if you've got the right knowledge and the right skills. And that really was the start, because I didn't realize it was possible. And as soon as I realized, oh, actually maybe I can do this, that was a massive defining point.
sure. Okay, so that's good. And I think a lot of people, I think by definition, if people are watching this webinar, um, they kind of understand that there is a need to have that plan.
Yeah.
That perhaps they've even almost had that kind of shot girl moment, for want of a better term, where they realise actually this is not sustainable in the long run if I want to achieve what I want to do. So the biggest barrier for the vast majority of working musicians, of course, is, or certainly perceived barrier, is that to enter the property game specifically, you've got to have some capital up front to be able to start that process. Because if you want to buy, many of these folk that are kind of involved, in fact, it would be great, again, if put in the comments whether you're currently renting or whether you've got a property, you own it or mortgaged or whatever. But it would be good if people could kind of give us an insight into that. But my guess is that and already looking at that, the majority of people are renting. That suggests that they haven't got the capital necessarily to buy their own or the buy to let. How does that work? What's the kind of the secret behind getting onto that ladder without having the huge capital that people assume that they need?
Being skillful, really. it's about, you definitely need to equip yourself with the right amount of knowledge, just to understand how to structure deals and find them. But the good thing, what I think performers really excel at, is we are great at dealing with rejection, because we deal with it every day, and we're grafters as well, and we're very self-motivated.
Yeah.
So I think performers make amazing business people, they really do, and we're charming, which is, you know, the best part about it. So I just, if you can just learn some key skills, just so as well for your own safety, you know, so that you're protecting yourself and you're protecting investors that you're working with. If you can knuckle down, and the good thing is now, you know, because of everything with technology, there's so much information out there with a click of a button. You know, it's just really finding something that fits for you. When I started this, I was 26, and I literally chucked my life savings into learning this stuff, thousands and thousands of pounds, and you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, this, you can get a course now for a couple £100, or you can get some coaching from someone for a couple £100. That wasn't about when I started.
Yeah.
It literally was a few massive companies, and you would literally hand over like 20 grand and go, teach me, and that was it. You don't need to do that now. So just get the information however you need to. You will need to pay for it, but it's not going to be the amount that I had to pay. And then it's just about really finding deals, and then working with private investors.
By finding deals, you're talking specifically about the actual finding properties for sale that are available for purchase. Is that not necessarily properties that are for sale? Interestingly, that's perhaps one of the things that I know on the course that you and I met on. One of the things that changed my mindset was to actually look for the deals that aren't necessarily already deals. And to ask questions. Everything is for sale at the right price. You don't know the circumstances behind it. But coming back specifically, let's say that somebody sources a great deal. They, for example, you know, there might in the aftermath of COVID-19, there's going to be properties that are essentially vacant because of deaths, because of businesses that have collapsed, whatever that reason. Let's say somebody finds a great deal, they know that they can buy it at a great price, but they haven't got the capital funds to do it. How do musicians go about accessing that capital? Because of course they haven't got necessarily the credit score or the financial history. Even salaries generally are a rarity in this industry. So it's very difficult to access finance for musicians through the most traditional channels. How do they go about doing that? Actually raising the cash for the project?
So I would say the easiest way to go about as a musician, while you're getting your ducks and eggs in a line, is to partner up with someone who is good on paper, someone that is mortgageable, maybe cash rich, maybe someone a little bit older. And I started with a partnership with someone who, he was a businessman, he was older, ticked all the boxes, he had loads of cash, but because he was cash rich, did not want to go around viewing houses, didn't want to deal with builders, didn't want to do any of that stuff. So we were a perfect team, because I was young and energetic, really hungry to build this.
Yeah.
And he just would provide the cash, and we split everything 50-50. So that's quite an obvious, perfect scenario really for performers to begin with, is just partnering with someone that can get finance.
And I guess a lot of people know people like that, but again, and you touched on it, on the fear of rejection is probably the thing that stops a lot of people from wanting to do that. And am I right in saying that as long as deals are structured properly and stress tested, which we'll touch on in a minute, it's fair to say really that you can't really go wrong with the majority of deals, can they? People can't lose money if you set the deal up properly. It's a fairly safe deal. So, you know, if you're going to Uncle Keith, who's a millionaire, and saying, look, I want you to risk some savings on this, as long as the deal's structured, it's a fairly low risk bet. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you do your work up front. So you're doing all your stress tests, you're running
I'm conscious, me and you use the term stress test. We know what that is. Can you just explain for those that don't know what that is? Is that right?
Yeah, so it's basically running your figures and looking at worst case scenario. So it's if, for example, you're looking at a terraced house and you want to rent it out. So you're running your figures at high interest rates. Does it still make money at high interest rates? What if, for whatever reason, you need to sell? Can you still sell and make a profit because you've purchased it at a discount? Just looking at, so you've got plan A, plan B, plan C. So you're going to your investor and saying, listen, this is a great deal. This is the first plan. We're going to rent it out. We're going to make some positive income, some cash flow from it every month. But if we need to sell, because we've bought it at such a good price, this is where the market's at. We've bought it here. We can make that a little bit there. Third option, let's rent out by the room. We can then get 4 different tenants in there. That's going to make us X amount. So you're really looking at a property and you're looking, what can we do with this to maximize and make sure that no matter what goes on, we've got a plan.
Yeah, it's that risk, isn't it? It's removing any viable risk. So when we talk about stress testing, that's specifically what we're looking for. So go on, you carried on kind of talking then kind of through that process. Go for it.
What's that? Sorry, say that again.
So in kind of talking about getting those first deals, we structure a deal so it's a no lose deal. What does one of those look like? Talk us through from the let's say, so let's you just touched on a terrace property there. Let's say that we find a terrace property that we think is a good deal. First of all, how do we know if it's a good deal, and how do we go about bringing that to fruition? We've got obviously the options of flipping and renting, which you touched on then. If you could give us, kind of talk us through from the how do we decide what to offer, through to having completed it and deciding whether we want to rent it out, whether we want to flip it, whether we want to do it as an HMO, which you just touched on, as a house of multiple occupancy. Talk us through that kind of entire process and what that looks like.
Okay. Right, so it all starts off with your personal strategy, because as performers, there's different criteria that you're going to need. So when I started, I wanted passive income, so that if I decided I needed a month off singing, my bills were paid. So that was my first priority. And as you sort of hit certain goals in your property business, then you can start playing with it and going, actually, I want to make capital, so you can buy and sell. And so it starts really by knowing what your goals are, because otherwise you'll go and view anything and everything. You're chasing your tail and it's just a waste of time, really. So from day one what you're actually after. So if you're looking for buy-to-lets where you're going to rent out, typically you're going to be looking at cheap terraced houses.
I think it's a fair assumption, and certainly for the purpose of this illustration that you're taking us through now, to assume that what we're looking for is buy-to-lets, where people purchase a house and then rent it out. Because I think the majority of people, certainly in the preamble and the conversation that I was having with people that are watching, it would like to create that passive income. So if they know that, for example, they haven't got a contract. So let's say they're a cruise ship musician, they've not got 3 months. They've got 3 months where they haven't got any income coming in, or indeed they're in a function band or in their originals band that's just finished touring, or a session musician touring with somebody. They've got 3 months downtime. There's no kind of direct income from their music or performance line. They want some steady income in. Yeah. So let's kind of structure this around that, if that's all.
So finding your area is really important in terms of when you're starting. I think it's really important to make sure that your terraced houses are cheapy, because if you're buying in expensive areas, people tend to invest where they live, but sometimes that's not the right thing. Because if you've got a couple of properties which are meant to be giving you passive income, but for whatever reason they're empty and they need maybe a little bit of work, if you've got big mortgages and your mortgage is £400 a month, say, per property, plus your council tax, and they're empty for 3 or 4 months, that's just cost you £2,000. Whereas if you're buying in cheaper areas, so for example, the properties I buy, my mortgages are like £100, 150 quid. Yeah. So if I've got 1 or 2 empty, it's nothing, because it's like, it's 100 quid. It really doesn't. So that's the first thing, is find properties that are cheap, that are just cheap terraced houses, but are still going to bring a good rental income in. So it's a little bit of homework to do there, just to find these key areas.
It's worth touching on geography there as well, because a lot of our clients and people that will be watching this are London based, where cheap houses don't exist.
That's right.
And actually, I know I've got properties further north than where I live, And I know a lot of, not necessarily musicians or creatives, but people that are based down south, specifically in London, that have got a lot of properties in Burnley and Manchester.
Yeah.
So talking about areas that you, not necessarily that you live in, you literally live in different cities, don't you? Not
Oh
necessarily.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
you're picking up cheap houses. I mean, it's just not going to happen in London.
Yeah.
It's the whole of this. You want to be north of Birmingham really to
Okay.
pick up your cheap grunters. I call them my grunters. So, so you know your area first of all. Decide on an area. You got that down at least. And then to really qualify, what I look for in a property basically is I personally look for properties that are run down that need refurb, because that way I can really negotiate a good discount. So I typically stay away from properties that are already modernised because they're asking for a bit of a premium and there's no way that I can really add value to that. So I stick to properties that are a bit battered, quite old fashioned. So I'll go and view all of these terraced houses. You'll do your research so you know what the sale price is once they are modernised, so you're working backwards. So there is a lot of initial homework that will go into an area where you know the type of rents you can achieve for a 2-bed, a 3-bed, a 4-bed, what they would go for, what they'd be valued at if they're modernised, and then you're sort of working backwards. So you'll view a property, then you're looking at how much the refurb's going to be, so you'll knock that off the offer price. Then you're going to knock off a bit of discount as well to make sure that you've got a little bit of profit in there. Then that's how you come to your offer price.
Okay.
So it sounds quite complicated, but I guess it's like anything. Once you get into the process of doing it,
it's formulaic, isn't it, eventually?
Yeah, it's just habits really of doing the same thing. I mean, if you're in a West End show and you just don't have time to do that, but you like the idea, use sourcing agents that are based up there.
Yeah.
If as long as you double check their figures and you do your own due diligence and you've got a bit of savings,
Yeah.
just use sourcing agents. It's going to save you.
Sourcing agents, again, because that's a term that you and I are familiar with, but maybe some people aren't. So tell us what sourcing
is. So sourcing agents basically are professional property investors, or they should be professional property investors. They should be active property investors, where they're going out and finding property deals, and then they sell the deal on to somebody else for a fee. So it's usually £2,000, £3,000, but they do all of the legwork. So they're negotiating the deal for you. They'll supply the builders as well, so you don't have to worry about, oh God, I've got to find builders and letting agents. They'll supply a full team, and they should really present the figures of the deal, saying this is the discount, this is the monthly income you'll make, this is how much the refurb is. So you can make quite an educated decision when you look at that, whether that's something that sort of ticks your boxes or not.
And that's often you'll send a deal across to me, won't you, with all the numbers, and it's great, and I can see the kind of what it's worth, what the purchase price is, how the rent's going to work, 2 or 3 different exit strategies, whether you're going to sell it and what we call flip it, or whether you're going to retain it and generate a rent, and I have the security in seeing those numbers, and knowing, even with my basic knowledge, that they all stack up and they're right. So one thing to touch on is that I know from my experience of dealing with you that generally speaking, you'll look to buy 20% below market value, and they're the properties that are of interest. If you're buying at market value, it doesn't really work, does it? The whole model falls down.
That's right.
So is 20% about right? That's what you want to be buying below market value?
Yeah, so let's just, for ease of numbers, say if a property's worth 100,000 modernised, straight away I'm at 80, then I'm taking off my refurb costs as well. So so when you actually look at it, if it's worth 100, I'm offering 60. Okay. But it's taking the 20% off, then taking the refurb, then taking off, stamp and all the other.
When you say worth 100 modernised, that means after you've done your work, doesn't it? So it might be worth 80 grand to start with, and you're offering 60.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So So the market value is what it's worth now. You're then looking at what it would be worth when it's finished.
Modernised.
So in terms of what it's actually worth, you're looking at 20% generally below what it's worth. And as you say, when you if it were that simple, explain to me how this works then, that you go in and you're offering 20% below market value. I guess by definition, if something's at market value, why would somebody sell below market value?
So typically they're problem houses.
Yeah.
No one wants them, or it's just relationships really. So it's relationships I've built up with agents, or if it's direct with a seller. So I've got one at the moment, 35 grand for a 1-bed flat. So they go for 65. It only needs 10 grand on it. And it was basically, his situation is he'd had sales agreed for like 50, 55. They'd fallen through. And now he just wants to work with someone like myself that's an investor where I'm not going to mess him about. And he actually just wants to get rid of it at 35 grand.
Job done.
That's it.
and what is it? Is there maybe 1 in 50 houses meet that criteria where there's someone that's...
Yeah, so it's like work really. You've got to put the graft in. So I think a lot of people get disheartened because they view 5 houses, put 5 cheeky offers in, then go, this doesn't work, and it's like, well, that's because you need to view 20. And then you're going to get near. So it's a lot of rejection, a lot of people saying no chance, and that's fine because most people don't need to sell at that price. But
and again, that's where the characteristic, as you said, of musicians kind of it works, doesn't it? Because we're so used to, but by definition, if you've made it as a career musician, you have perseverance because it's one of those competitive fields. It's like sports people as well. You know, to make a living at your chosen sport, you have to be one of these kind of high performance individuals that has the tenacity, the desire, and the drive to be successful. So I guess that's why it's worked for you and why it can work for other musicians. Okay, so we've got let's say we've found the property, we've agreed the deal. What next? How does it work?
Okay, so you've had the offer agreed. What then? The next stage, if you don't have your own cash, you need to raise the cash.
Yeah.
So that's then putting the figures into a business proposal, where you're just basically a little bit of info about the area. So, is it close to schools? Is it in a town centre, or is it, where's the nearest hospital and bus routes? What's your tenant type? Just a little bit of background really about the property, about what the property needs, like your plan, what your exit strategies are. Numbers, really simple. So purchase price, refurb, what it's going to be worth afterwards, how you're structuring the deal, and then most importantly, what you are offering to the investor, because that's all they care about really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very quickly get into what they're getting.
Yeah.
I'm offering you this. I need your money for this amount of time. This is what I can offer you. This is the safety I can offer you. This is the deal. Yay or nay. It's just really simple. I think people go a bit too over the top with making things so complicated. And actually, people are interested in how much money are they going to make? How long is it for? What do they need to do?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as somebody that invests with you, I can concur with that. Absolutely. I won't tell you this, but I often don't even look at the front. I look at the bottom line and say,
I know.
Yeah. So no, absolutely, that's one. So kind of putting the deal down on paper and finding your investor, and they are out there, aren't they? There are people that have got.
It's unbelievable.
Bank interest rates are so poor. Most people have got somebody within their family or their network that has got some cash. They don't really know what to do with it. They haven't got the knowledge, the drive, or the time, which is the case with me, to be able to do that. So if you put a solid deal on the table, there's no problem. And if you're buying it below market value, which we've said we absolutely must, it's a no lose, because worst case scenario, you sell it as it was and
you make your money.
Yeah.
This is it. And I think family's a great place to start, because generally there's always someone in the family that's got 50 grand or what, there's to start, there is usually somebody in the family that's got cash.
Okay, so let's say we're buying this let's say a 60 grand terrace up north, and the deal is that we found the investor. Uncle Keith has lent you the 60 grand to buy it, or the 50 grand to buy it, and then 10 grand to do a refurb. What next? How does that work?
Okay, so you can either, it depends on the value, the condition of the property. If the property isn't horrendous, It's old-fashioned, but it's not. It's still got a kitchen, a bathroom. There's no damp or anything. You could potentially get a mortgage. So, if you're mortgageable, then you only need the 25% deposit.
Yeah.
If it needs to be quick and you don't want to be fanning around with banks and stuff because they can just drag their heels, then you use Uncle Keith's cash, and it's just so then you're going through solicitors. The solicitors will ask where the funds are coming from, and then you just say it's family. And what they'll do is they'll ask Uncle Keith where he's got his money from, make sure it's all legit. For money laundering, Uncle Keith will have to might have to send a letter in his bank statement saying it's savings. And then Uncle Keith will send his money to the solicitor, so you're not, it's just direct, so it's really, really slick, really professional. It depends really on your relationship with whoever your investor is as to what kind of security they want. So some people literally, I've got some investors who I have never met, which just blows my mind, who have come from Instagram, who sign a loan agreement, transfer money into my bank account, and have absolutely no idea what deals it's going in, and just go, give it me back in 5 years. Unbelievable. And then there's some people who do a deal by deal. They want a first charge. So with the first charge,
I know for my first, and we've said that kind of going forward there will be no need because we've established that relationship over the years. But I know historically, and we've decided not to do that in future because of the paperwork surrounding it. But a first charge gives me a massive level of security that if you were to disappear, that house would essentially, I would be able to claim my money back against the value of it, wouldn't it? So that
it's your house essentially. Sure, it's your name's registered on land registry, so it's like maximum security. So if you've got someone that's quite risk averse, when you offer someone a first charge, what it means is when you buy the property, the solicitor puts a register on the deeds that basically says that your investor has a stake of £50,000. So money's protected. So if you went bankrupt, the house would sell, and that money would have to go back to your investors. So it's fully protected. So it's really the maximum you can offer somebody. So in terms of that, you really can give someone full security to give them that peace of mind. It is a bit boring with all the paperwork, but if they want,
I think when you start, I think that's a necessity, isn't it, to build those relationships.
That's right.
And I know me and you did one, and then we've kind of done more further on. And actually, once you kind of get that confidence in people and you build that relationship, then certainly for me, I'm now thinking, okay, it's safe. The model works. Fine. We don't need to worry about that so much now.
That's right. And if it's family, they might not need it. If it's family, for them, they might know your character so well, and they might trust you. They might just want to help you, and so I'd give it to you anyway, and they're not. It doesn't need to be that, and they'll put it down as a gift, even though it's not a gift. They can say to the solicitor it's a gift, and it's all straightforward that way. And then you've got the choice as well of what you're going to offer them in terms of interest. So for property investors, typically it's anything between 8 to 12% per annum that you'll offer people.
Which is again, as an investor, that's an incredible deal, because I mean money that I have in the bank gets I'd be lucky if I get 1%. Even my share portfolio, if I get 10, it's been that's kind of it recognised as being a good year, and investors are generally happy on 10%. And even if you own properties, actually, you'd be quite happy to get that. You're going to struggle to achieve that. So if you're offering 10%, people should be forming a queue, really, shouldn't they?
That's right. Yeah. And actually, a lot of property investors now are going lower and lower. They're doing 6 to 8, but I think 8 to 10 is quite a win-win. Because ultimately, you are asking people to put their trust in you. So I think it's got to be worth. If you can get it for 6, great. But I think 8 to 10 is quite nice.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've got that. We've got the money from Uncle Keith. We've bought the property. What next?
Okay, so Uncle Keith, you've got your property. Next stage is builders. From my experience, what I would say is if you are a female, get a man to come along with you,
Really?
because I would say definitely it's a definite thing. Not like now, because I've been doing it for so many years. I've got builders that only work for me, and they're like family, and I just love them. But to begin with, I was 26 and they just saw me coming a mile off.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's definitely the thing that's caused me the most anxiety ever in property, is like dealing with bad trades and them just ripping you off and things. So you've got to be quite, I think any advice I would give is, do not try and be friends with these people from day one. It's got to be a business transaction. Make sure they know that you are asking questions, that you're getting lots of different quotes. Don't go for your first quote, get 5, 6, get lots of different quotes, recommendations from people, because your trades, the whole point of with your refurb is, if your refurb is meant to cost 10 and it costs 20,
that's it. The deal's done, isn't it? It's dead.
the deal's done. If it's only a tiny little terraced house and all of a sudden you've refurbed double the price and it's still crap, and you've not managed to actually add any value because they've done a really crap deal, they've done an awful job, then it totally defeats the object. So it's such a huge part of the business is to make sure you've got good builders. And that's, everyone, men have the same, they do have the same struggles with it. I know there's not one property investor I've ever met that hasn't had a problem with the trade. So you do have to go through that, but eventually I feel so lucky that I've got my team now, but it took me a few years to get them, for sure. Cool. So you'll have your builders go in, they're going to do whatever work needs doing to add value. So the most important things for property, to make sure you're modernising and you're adding maximum value, is kitchen and bathroom.
Yeah, sure.
I think people get a bit obsessed with like making sure that everything's plastered and that there's no wallpaper, just as long as it's neutral, like white walls, grey carpet. Don't waste money unless there's something wrong with the walls. Don't waste money on it, because it's not going to add value to a 60 grand terraced house. No, your tenants aren't going to care. What your tenants want is a modern kitchen, a modern bathroom, and a neutral background that they can then put their stuff against.
Or make their own,
Kitchens and bathrooms sell houses. And again, some people think that the kitchen needs to be a 10 grand kitchen. No, it doesn't. It's a Howden's job. Your kitchen's a 3 grand job, your bathroom's a 3 grand job. It looks a lot more, but it's not. And they're just, they're these are little workhorses for you. So you want something that looks good, looks modern, but that can take a bit of a battering. That's cheap, but not cheap as in tatty. But you're not putting in a designer kitchen.
Brilliant. So, okay, the property's been refurbed. It's got its lovely new bathroom. It's got its lovely new kitchen. What next? Because I'm thinking about going back out on a cruise ship contract for 3 months now. So I need to have a plan and deal with what we're going to do with this property.
So you're going to use a letting agent, because you don't want to be dealing with tenants yourself, especially if you're on the other side of the world. So letting agent's crucial. I would use, if possible, an independent letting agent, because they're going to care a lot more than just a big franchise where people clock off and go home and don't care. So use an independent letting agent if you can. They're going to let it out, and then there's a 6-month rule where basically from purchasing a property you've got 6 months until you can then place a mortgage. So you've used Uncle Keith's cash. What you want to do after 6 months is apply for a mortgage, and then the mortgage company are going to come out and value it higher than what you purchased it for, because you've done a refurb. They place the mortgage, you get Uncle Keith's cash out, you pay Uncle Keith back, thank you very much, plus his interest. You've now got the property rented out, bringing in income, and your little 150 quid mortgage is significantly less than the 500 quid you're bringing in from your rental income, and you're now making 250, 300 quid a month.
So essentially, you've got the house for free.
Yeah, essentially.
Because obviously it's been financed by somebody else's cash that you've now given back, because you've added the value and remortgaged it. You essentially, you sat with the asset, which is generating you a monthly cash flow with having not put any of your money.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. If you want to move a little bit quicker, so those types of deals where we call them money in, money out, where you're literally ending up with the asset for free, they're quite few and far between because everyone wants them. So if you're in a position where you've got, let's say you've got £15,000 savings, and traditionally that would only ever buy you one property.
Yeah.
Instead, what you could do is say, well, I'm willing to leave in £5,000 in each property, and then you can get three, because you've stretched your criteria to say, actually, I don't mind leaving £5,000 in.
Yeah. Because that £5,000 you recoup relatively soon from the rental that you.
This is it. You're going to get your money back out in 2 years anyway. So that's 50% return on investment straight away.
Brilliant. And so we basically, we've at that point, you've almost done the job, haven't you? That you've got your money back out because you've refinanced it and taken a mortgage on it. You've got your monthly income from your agent. You could, of course, sell it if you wanted to, if it was work better for you. And that deal is pretty much done. So we've kind of just talked top to bottom, very, very quickly talked through what I think that's probably fair to say. That's what a typical deal looks like. And I would say, I would ask you, in fact, in terms of the best sort of deal that working musicians could source, is that the one that you want? Bearing in mind that ultimately this is always about kind of ongoing cash flow. Of course, you've got the ongoing cash flow, but you've also got capital growth, because that property in the long term is going to go up in value as well.
And you've got the equity built in as well.
Yeah.
You've got equity built in, going to go up in value, and you're getting a monthly income.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the sort of deal really that we'd say to musicians that's going to work.
Buy-to-lets are, I mean, the more you delve into property, you'll realise there's so many different sexy strategies. But as a musician, if you're always on the road, you don't want to think about it. You just want something that's dead easy, that's easy to sell if you want to sell it, but also you want just to have the least amount of headache. So when you're just, just a typical buy-to-let family house, you don't really hear a peep out of them.
Yeah.
Because you've got families living there. They live there for years, and it's very rare I hear anything from a buy-to-lets.
Yeah. So just coming back to your specific thing, because what you've done is absolutely remarkable. You started at 20. How old were you when you? 28.
26.
26. Okay, and you're 30. I should never ask a lady her age, but and tell us about your portfolio now, what that looks like, and how that's evolved, because you've kind of gone on to the next level. And I don't want that in detail, but just kind of give everybody a snapshot of what is possible when you kind of put the right strategies in place. Where are you at with that now?
Okay, so when I started, I definitely did it the wrong way around. I didn't take anyone's advice. I just did what I wanted. So typical me. I started with, they're called HMOs, which is like student housing, where they rent out by the room. Only because actually I was just finding the deals. It wasn't that I just had a phone call from a landlord selling two, and that sort of just got me on that path. And then I found the money through a joint venture partner who had buckets of cash, and I didn't need to worry about any of this remortgaging in my name, because I couldn't get mortgages, so I was renting. So there's things I needed to do myself. So it was really, everything seemed to line up for me, whereas the mortgages were going in his name. He had loads of cash. We could afford to be buying bigger properties, renting them out by the room, doing massive, like 45, 50 grand refurbs. So we did 6 of these back to back to back to back to back. And I didn't bother with the little terraced houses, the little 2 beds, 3 beds, little flats. Just didn't look at them. I was just doing the bigger stuff straight away. And the problem with doing that is I did it too quickly before I tested the market. So what I should have done is I should have bought 1 and 2, stopped, and then just saw if I liked it, if the managing agent was any good, what the builders were like. But instead we were just buying them. I was ringing him going, got another one. And he was going, brilliant, how much do you need? I was going, 150 grand, right, good, let's go. We were buying them in 2-3 weeks, just smashing them back to back. And so we, built a good portfolio. But then because the deal was that I did all the work and he just put the money in, I created a big job for myself. My phone never stopped ringing. I had I had HMOs with DSS tenants in.
Yeah.
I had overseas students. I had workers losing their jobs, not paying rent. Just so I went from having nothing to about 35 tenants like that.
Yeah.
Bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
So I quickly realised, oh, actually, this isn't why I've started this, and it started to really stress me out. So I just went back to basics, and I then at that point thought, you know what, as well, I'm giving someone else too much power in terms of he owned everything, and because I'm a performer, I'm not analytical. Certainly wasn't then. I've changed a lot since then, but I would literally sign anything and not read it. You know, it was just so flippant. And because he was a businessman, he had all these contracts where everything was in his favour. I literally didn't have a leg to stand on. So I was running around like a blue arse fly, hardly earning any money. He owned everything. I had no security and didn't even realise. So eventually, you know, the penny clicked, and I thought, I need to stop this. I need to just start building for myself and just go back to basics. So that was a couple of years in at that point. I must have been about 28, 29. And I just went right back, and I started buying little one-bed flats for like 35 grand, just working with angel investors, so private investors, people like Ben, and just buying, you know, really cheap terraced houses and doing the model we've talked about, just in my own name.
Sure.
And stopped with the HMO, stopped with all the big flashy deals, just thought, actually, they're a pain in the arse, I don't need to do that. And just went back to basics. So got to 15 of those, just little one bed, like little terraced houses, and then started doing flips. So then started buying and selling to generate lump sums of income. And then now the sort of strategy that I do now is buying, in October I bought like a big 3-story property on the seafront, holiday flats, and we're turning them into luxury holiday apartments. We've got some in another place as well. So that's a totally different strategy, because that's a different industry altogether, really, hospitality, when you're taking like B&Bs and that type of thing, much bigger refurbs. So I built the stability of having enough passive income to pay all my bills and my outgoings. And then from there decided, oh, actually, now we can play, now we can have more fun, and now we can go on to more creative strategies. But I really had to learn to like rein it in and just, you know, do the boring stuff, really.
Yeah. Just while I'm just looking at a couple of questions. Someone's put, my family are poor. Where do people find it? If you've not got an Uncle Keith that's got 50, 60 grand, you can still access things. How would you say people should look to go and find partners if they're not within their existing network of family? Is there kind of networks out there? You talked about angel investors. Some people think they're a myth, but they do exist. How do you find them?
Gosh, they come from everywhere. So recommendations, you have to just tell people what you're doing is the biggest thing I'd say. Is people say, I can't find any. I'm like, well, who have you told? Like, no one knows you're investing in property. You've got to actually be vocal about what you're doing, so that it comes up in conversation. So it might not be your friend, but it might be your friend's mum, and she just has a passing conversation. So like anything, it gets easier. Like, you know, as a performer, you start out with no contacts, and then as the longer you're doing it, everyone knows each other, and before you know it, it's the same contract rolls in every year. And it's the same with property. You know, you start with nothing, and then as you get better and you start getting angel investors, they recommend their mate, and then so it's you've got to put the graft in to begin with. You can go to networking events. I mean, it is really unbelievable. I just feel so lucky in terms of, like, I could put a post on Facebook saying, this is a deal, these are the numbers, this is what I'm offering, and I can guarantee people would inbox me saying, I'm interested.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
It's putting it out there, isn't it? It's making it known what you're doing.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
Another question that's coming, this is actually from one of the lads who plays in the band that we look after. How much each month do I need to put aside? If I'm serious about doing this, how much each month do I need to put aside? I'm paraphrasing there, but to start
deposit.
saving, to put some money aside to kind of kickstart me. And I don't know if that's, and again, I don't know if that's meant in terms of capital or in terms of kind of paying legal fees to get the deal structured for Uncle Keith or our investor. But what would be your tip if you're a 20-year-old starting out your career as a working musician on the cruise ships, on function bands, touring as a session musician or a studio musician? What kind of advice would you give to somebody? They may be 2 or 3 years off wanting to be in a place to do this. What advice would you give to them in that respect?
Do you know what? If you're on a cruise ship, you've got absolutely no excuse not to save.
Yeah, because you've got no costs. Yeah.
Like, it's just, you should be saving. If you're on a cruise ship, you should be saving 60% of your income.
Okay.
Like, there's just absolutely no. I know you get off and you can go for a nice meal and all the rest of it, but you've no outgoings.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing on a cruise ship. You can literally save pretty much all of your income, really, apart from when you're going off and getting a few bits. I would say try and keep your outgoings down.
Yeah.
It's saving is a habit for sure, and it's, if you know that I just think there's people that have got good money habits and bad money habits. So if I've always had very good money habits, so even though no matter how much I earn, I'd always manage to save a little bit. Even if I'd had a really bad month, I'd still save 50 quid. And if I'd had a good month, or for Christmas, if my nan gave me Christmas money, if she gave me 200 quid, I'd save 150 of it. Because I had those inbuilt. So that's where you really need to look at yourself and say, if you've got bad money habits, it doesn't matter how much money you will earn, you'll spunk it. You could earn 10 grand and you'll spunk it all. So it's really just looking at yourself and looking at your income and going, I can save some of this. And being really disciplined, especially obviously that you've panto where you'll learn quite a lot, and then all of a sudden January is really crap or whatever. And so I think it's so important as a performer to really get good with money and not waste it. Because if you can it doesn't matter. There's no amount of money I could say, because property, ultimately, the more money you have, the more you can get. It's as simple as that. So it's like, save as much as you can, really, but just work on your skills for saving, because if you can master the skills of money, it means that whatever you're earning from property, you can start reinvesting it, and it becomes a bit of a beast that does feed itself. And that's certainly where I've noticed that. I reinvest most of my income, and then I earn more money from like sourcing and a coach, and I do different things, because I realise that basically I'm compounding. Every time I take my income and I reinvest it, these are real true wealth habits, and that's how your wealth just doubles. Like, you're literally seeing it happen, because it's just going back into the beast.
Brilliant. Listen, I'm gonna let you go, because I've taken up so much of your time. I am so grateful to you for coming and sharing. That was incredible and inspirational. So I'm hoping there's been some real insights for those that are watching and will watch in future, because we'll doubtless publish this on the website. So thank you very much. Is it all right if I share your Instagram and a couple of I'm sure people would love to kind of see what you're up to. And
please do. I'm quite active on Instagram. And I give loads of tips on Instagram. I do like little videos where I just say, like, this is what to look for, and so hopefully you'll find that quite useful, like how to start out and all that type of thing.
So. Fantastic. Kristina, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to doing a deal together very, very soon. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers.